Hey, what's going on, bikers? Pierce here with Electric Bike Report, and today we have the Thunder T1. The T1 is an all-terrain fat tire e-bike from TurboAnt. Let's see what it's all about. So the TurboAnt T1 is going to be a good Class 2 or Class 3 electric bike for those who don't want to be confined to one type of riding. Whether you're a commuter or you want to go explore some gravel roads in your area, the TurboAnt is going to be able to do that just fine for you. You have a grip twist throttle, you have fat tires, and a suspension fork. Between all the features on this bike that I'll get into, I think you'll see the all-terrain capability of this bike and how it could be good for a wide range of people. So the Thunder T1 is powered by a 750 watt rear hub motor from Bafang. This rear hub motor has pretty fast engagement. When you pedal stroke, you'll feel it kick in pretty much instantaneously. But what I really liked about this motor was its acceleration on flat ground. When I was in the higher pedal assist levels, it didn't take me long at all to get near or around top speed. This motor is kind of similar to some of the other motors we've had on fat tire bikes. A lot of manufacturers do like to have the 750 watt motor. To see how this motor varies from some of the other ones we've tested, we conducted a hill climb test where we saw how fast this bike can climb in throttle assist and the highest pedal assist level. Basically, what this tells us is how this motor performs on its own and with rider assistance. By the end of the hill test, you should have a good idea of how this motor performs. We are at the bottom of our test hill. We're about to do the throttle only test for the TurboAnt, which has a grip twist throttle and a 750 watt motor. So we're gonna see how this thing does on its own power, just holding the throttle the whole time. Here we go. So pretty good acceleration. Passing on your left. All right, so this is gonna be a big indicator of how this motor can handle steep grades. We're at about a 15% grade right now, and I'm paying attention to the speed. Let's try and not drop below 10, TurboAnt. Okay. We're about 9.5 miles per hour, reaching the steepest part of the hill here. So it does feel like the motor's handling this okay. Not the fastest bike up the steep part of the hill that I've tested, but it's definitely not the slowest either. Picking up some good speed here. It's always good to see when these motors can accelerate when it's not quite as steep, because it helps them on the next steep part, which is right here. This is usually a motor killer. Down to around 7.5 again. So I like this throttle because it's not too hard to continue to hold on to. It's not tightly enough wound that it kind of hurts your hand to hold for a while. So commuters who don't want to pedal when they're riding will probably like that quite a bit. There's a distinguishable feeling difference between the throttle and the grip. All right, and now we are going to see how this bike does in pedal assist level 5. A few things I'll be focusing on is my speed and also how many times that I'll have to shift to maintain pedaling comfortably. Rather than pushing a really hard gear, I am shifting down to match my cadence up consistently the whole time, regardless of the steepness. So this is the pedal assist level 5 test, seeing how the TurboAnt 750 watt motor does. Here we go. So real solid acceleration off the bat right there. me. So feeling good in the hardest gear on this. It's handling it pretty well. Probably time to shift around now. So we have a solid average speed around this corner, 12.5 miles per hour. Shift again. So this TurboAnt does seem to be doing decent on the hill. It has good acceleration in between the steeper parts. Not quite as much as some of the other 750 watt motors I've seen, but it definitely feels smooth, and at the bottom I was impressed by the acceleration that I had. I'll pass on your left. Reaching the top now. That felt smooth, and the shifts felt really crisp, even though I was under a lot of torque or load on the drivetrain there. So awesome. I'm pretty satisfied with the way that felt. Let's see what our results are like. So we just finished up the hill test on the TurboAnt Thunder T1, and I had a few takeaways from this bike. One of which is it's going to be strong enough to get you up pretty much any hill, especially if you're helping the bike. This bike does have that 750 watt motor, which is more than enough power, especially when you're pedaling in the higher assist levels. When I did this test hill with the throttle only, without me helping at all, it took me 1 minute and 33 seconds with an average speed of 11.7 miles per hour to reach the top. When I did the pedal assist level 5 test, it took me 1 minute and 12 seconds with an average speed of 15.1. I was pretty impressed with how smooth the motor engagement was. Not necessarily how fast it was boosting me, but how natural it felt below me when I was shifting down and cranking. I think this bike is solid in a lot of ways. Hill climbs definitely seem to be one of its strong suits. I have tested faster bikes on this test hill. However, this motor feels a little bit smoother than what I'm used to on fat tire e-bikes. So as a whole, I would say this is a solid hill climber. The motor does check a lot of boxes in that category. And so does the Shimano Acera drivetrain. Having those 7 gears was super nice in pedal assist level 5. Reason being is I could maintain the same amount of cadence or effort on my end while the bike picked up my slack and did the extra work. I only had to shift down 2 or 3 times, which really shows you can climb some really steep stuff on this. So it's pretty common knowledge that electric bikes need batteries to power the motor, and batteries vary quite a bit in performance. Typically, manufacturers will have a claimed battery range on their website, and here at Electric Bike Report, we like to put that range to the test in what we call a range test, where we pedal this bike on the lowest assist level and the highest assist level. This gives us a good idea of the true real-world range that these bikes provide. So the TurboAnt, it has a 48 volt, 14 amp hour battery pack, and I got 27.95 miles with an average speed of 19.1 miles per hour when I did the range test. Our test rider Griffin reached 58.18 miles with an average speed of 12.3 miles per hour. While we were both impressed with our average speeds relative to the assist level and how long the bike lasted, both of us were left with questions about the display. The reason being is the battery indicator wasn't very consistent. When I conducted the maximum pedal assist range test, it only took 2 or 3 miles for the battery readout to drop 2 bars. I honestly didn't think I was even going to get 10 miles with what the bike was telling me. But as I rode on, it held on to the remaining bars on the indicator for a very long time. So we would like to see a little bit more predictable and consistent battery readout. Main reason being, I didn't know how far I was going to get. It was left up in the air. The bike could have died at any time with what the readout was telling me. So my bottom line here is it has a good range, it has good pedal assist and average speed for when you're pedaling, but the battery readout doesn't tell you how much battery you have like it should. So there is a lot of fat tire e-bikes on the market, and in my opinion, where the TurboAnt Thunder T1 varies the most is in the cockpit and handlebar setup here. So the first thing I'll point out is you have an adjustable stem here, which is really nice because you can dictate your handlebar position, you can make it more performance oriented, leaning it forward, or you can bring it back, which would make the rider more upright. That's a little bit more cruiser-like. Whatever you prefer, or anywhere in between, is adjustable via loosening this, putting it where you'll want, and tightening it back up. So that's connected to a 725 millimeter handlebar, which is a lot flatter than most that I'm seeing on fat tire e-bikes. There's a lot with this rise, but they didn't need to do that because of the adjustable stem. And I do really like the flat bar. It does remind me of a mountain bike bar, and I'm very fond of mountain bikes. It does make it feel a little bit more off-road capable than a bigger, more risen bar would do. So yeah, I'm a fan of the stem and handlebar combo here. I think TurboAnt's doing a good job giving you that because there's a lot of adjustment there. You have faux leather grips here. They're an ergonomic shape. It makes them nice and easy to hold on to. They're on there, but not on there enough that you can't rotate it to where you like. Right here is a plastic grip twist throttle. And the cool thing about this throttle is you actually have the option to disengage or re-engage that throttle. That way, riders who might not be as familiar with how to use a throttle or don't want to risk accidentally engaging it when they turn the bike on, they can disengage it there. So aside from that, you have your Shimano 7-speed shifter we brought up during the hill test. It's an over-the-bar thumb shifter. It's a Shimano shifter, so it's tried and true, very consistent. You have your Tektro Aries mechanical disc brakes with the levers right here. We'll get into those a little bit more later. I wanted to save the display for last here. This display is pretty standard. You have your on button and off button in the middle, increasing pedal assist and lowering pedal assist. Holding down both the plus and minus, either or, will allow you to turn on the light, customize settings, everything like that. So this display has everything you'll need for modifying the bike. It is pretty standard. I like the more low profile displays like this, so I think it's just fine, other than the battery readout that I mentioned. Aside from that, you have your trusty bell. And as a whole, this should be a pretty straightforward interface to learn, and I think a lot of riders will like it. So the Thunder T1 comes with 5 total pedal assist levels, and we conduct what we call a circuit test here at Electric Bike Report to get a good idea of how each level performs and how the bike turns completely off. After we've done the loop in every assistance level, we have a good idea of what each assistance level provides and also what the power curve looks like in between each level. So what I found is all of the jumps are pretty big. They're either 2 or 3 miles per hour, except in between pedal assist level 3 and pedal assist level 4, where I only increased in speed by 0.6 miles per hour, but that's because the jump right before that was about 3 miles per hour. So overall, it does seem to be somewhat of an exponential power curve, but there is a little bit of a kink in that exponential line between pedal assist level 3 and 4. Not the biggest jump there, but that's okay because I still feel like pedal assist level 5 brings you the power, and you can really fine tune between pedal assist level 3 and 4. Alrighty guys, so we are here at our favorite parking lot to conduct what we call the brake test, where we set up cones on 5-foot increments to get a good idea of how this bike stops from the top class 2 speed of 20 miles per hour. By conducting these 5 tests, you should have a good idea how these Tektro Aries mechanical disc brakes operate when paired up with these 180 millimeter rotors front and rear. I'll be pulling both the brakes at the same time, and we have these brakes set up about in the middle of their stopping power, just to get the best of both worlds. So I just finished up the brake test. That was 5 total tests, all from the top class 2 speed of 20 miles per hour. It took me 22 feet and 8 inches on average to stop. I did slide quite a bit when I stopped. It wasn't the brakes not having stopping power, it was the fact that the wheel was locked up, so we were just sliding on rubber. So it did take a little longer than we're used to stop. However, that's pulling both brakes as hard as I can at the same time. If you modulate the brake a little bit in a corner, I think these Textro Aries brakes do work okay. Obviously, hydraulic brakes are going to yield a lot more stopping power. And for reference, we have these brakes set up about in the middle of their stopping power. So they could be a little bit more sensitive if you pulled the cable tighter, or a little less sensitive if you made the cable looser. So as I mentioned, right in the middle there, a little bit farther than what we're used to on a bike like this, but not much. It is a bike that is over 70 pounds, so there is a lot of inertia to slow down. More than it being unsafe, I would just say, make sure you know how fast you're going, make sure how long you know it takes to stop, and anticipate these things in advance so you don't get into a pickle. With that being said, I would still deem these brakes as safe overall, especially because there is a lot of adjustment you can make. So it's been a fun day testing out the TurboAnt Thunder T1. I think TurboAnt is doing a lot of things right. I still want to talk to you guys about the handling and comfort of this bike. So I feel like the handling of this bike is exactly what you would expect from a conventional fat tire e-bike. It's very stable, it's easy to get good traction around corners, and it smooths out rougher surfaces like gravel roads. I think that this bike has a cool feature in the sense that it has that adjustable stem, because you can have this bike ride a little bit more performance oriented, or lean those handlebars back and have them be a little bit more comfort oriented. To get the best of both worlds, I've chose to run that stem right in the middle. And as I've mentioned earlier, I really like this wide handlebar. It's 725 millimeters wide, and I find it to do the trick for keeping me stable, making me feel like my arms are at a good length, and I am a fan of the flat bar as a whole. As far as comfort goes, when I was doing the range test, I think that this bike is decently comfortable. These grips are a little bit hard, but that's pretty minor. I only noticed because I was doing around 30 miles on the bike, and it was never the end of the world. The suspension fork definitely added a nice touch to the handling and comfort of this bike. A lot of the things that add performance to this bike also are what's adding the comfort feeling, just like the suspension fork I mentioned, just like the tires here. So as a whole, I would say the TurboAnt T1 is good for those who don't want to spend too much money on a bike that really can take them anywhere that they would like to go. It has the power, it has the adjustability, and overall, it has the capability. So with that being said, I really appreciate you guys watching today. It is always so fun to make these reviews and see the differences between these fat tire bikes, and all bikes for that matter. If you want to learn more about this bike, I've listed a detailed written review in the description below. Right next to that, you'll see a like button and a subscribe button. If you hit both of those, you're helping us out quite a bit. And be sure to leave a comment what you'd like to see in our next review. With all of that being said, this is the TurboAnt Thunder T1. I'm Pierce Kettering with Electric Bike Report, and I'll see you next review.